Lacey from the Catholic Education Office in Adelaide, and I'm the Senior Education Advisor for Indigenous Education, which means I lead the team that looks after Indigenous education across all our schools. The approaches that Catholic education undertakes to attract Indigenous peoples into our sector, I think, are best started at Catholic education schools. So while we've only got a few staff members who are Aboriginal, the approach we're taking is a long-term one. So we're actually starting from this year from ages 11 to 12. Previously we probably started at year 10, which we've analysed. I think kids are, possibly thinking about it, or possibly indicating that they might be future educators at around 10 to 11 years old. So we're going to be targeting those students and supporting and mentoring them, hopefully in partnership with universities. So that's another goal that we've got, and continuing that partnership. So there's a community of practice and a well-known community for those students while they proceed through Catholic education into university and hopefully back into Catholic education as an educator. So that's our goal and our dream. Currently we have one of our, or two, possibly two people on our team who are focused specifically at case managing, for want of a better word, but really getting to know those students who are identifying or showing capacity and getting to know them really well, providing support programs around cultural identity. So if you feel secure about your identity in a very white Anglo environment, which Catholic Ed still is, hopefully that will help with the resilience factor around staying in the sector once they do get employed. So we do have a couple of initiatives. There's still a lot more work to do. The approaches Catholic Ed takes in retaining Indigenous staff would be the same as retaining any other staff member. So basically there's a suite of options available for staff members to undertake professional learning, either at an academic level, so we've got a study incentive program that provides them with some financial support as well as study support for that level of education and learning. We also have around Indigenous education specifically, for example, Indigenous perspectives in the curriculum, what we call a focus teacher program, and often our Indigenous teachers are also the focus teacher for Indigenous education in their school. And what we're trying to do is broaden that role so that there's a team of people around them, so they're not the isolated person who has to do everything Aboriginal. The minute there's an Aboriginal term in anything, they get to do that job. So we're broadening their role, providing more financial support to schools. That's something that we're going to be doing next year, and we're just rolling that out now. We've enhanced the focus teacher role. There's a professional learning program which is really well attended, so it runs possibly 4 to 6 days a year, and they can attend those workshops, network, learn more about the latest initiatives, the projects, the issues around Indigenous education and education per se. So it's about quality education, and it's about making the most of every student and making sure that they achieve their outcomes, whatever they might be. We have a philosophy of high achievement and also high aspiration for all students, and most specifically Aboriginal students. So the Indigenous teacher and/or Indigenous focus teacher has a key role in making sure that they get to know Aboriginal students and their families, and make connections with the wider community, and ensure that the educational outcomes for students, and including Aboriginal students, are achieved. Catholic education is really committed to employing more Aboriginal people in our schools, and so we have started some initiatives and an education program with particularly leaders like principals to ask them to consider options in their staffing formula for employing Aboriginal people. We do have some what we call education support officers who are Aboriginal, and they undertake a various array of roles within the school. So they're not always tied to the Aboriginal students, and we wouldn't necessarily be promoting that. You employ an Aboriginal person for the qualities and the capacities that they bring as a whole person. One of the things that we do, as I mentioned previously, is the Study Incentive Program. And I'll speak very specifically about that, particularly with regard to Aboriginal Education Support Officers, where this provides, again, up to $1,500 a year for academic study or, TAFE study. So, increasing, developing your skills in any professional learning area that is accredited. So it might well be that you're looking at Cert 3, right up to doctoral programs. So you get $1,500 every year to support the payment of fees. There's also a study leave program, and most specifically in the Catholic Education Office where I work, we have a core amount of Aboriginal education officers, particularly in my team. They're also encouraged to take study leave, so they can take up to 6 days, a year to do the writing, which is, part of the challenge of professional learning and being accredited when you're trying to, I suppose, balance the commitments of, work, family and study. So that's an important feature. We certainly encourage and promote that feature in our sector. When it comes to retention and also professional learning for Aboriginal education officers, as well as our Aboriginal teachers and all teachers and education officers, one of the key goals that we have is a focus on looking at cultural awareness, but through a different lens perhaps than has been used in the past. I'm particularly interested, and so is my team, in advancing Indigenous perspectives through that lens of critical race theory. So looking at the difficult concepts of whiteness and the invisibility of whiteness, about race relations in Australia and about our history, about post-colonial history, about the concepts of invasion, and also about the invisibility of whiteness and how that relates to non-white people in our sector and in our communities, and relationships of power. So we're really interested in talking about those difficult concepts. We've started that program already, and I'm really delighted to see that the leaders, the principals themselves are really open to engaging with this quite difficult arena. And so we're hoping to provide some financial support for education support officers as well as teachers who are interested in taking both professional learning that is accredited and not accredited in this arena. Part of the reason that we want to do this is that we're aware of how power relationships work within institutions like educational institutions, and how systems have been set up and how structures work to actually maintain the social order. So unless we actually move down a path of being courageous and start to talk about and inquire and embrace some of these difficult topics, because I think educational institutions largely maintain the current social order. And the current social order means that Aboriginal students still are disenfranchised. But we do also have some really good and effective case management systems in place so that when things are going awry, we do get in there and assist the family and the student to make sure that educational outcomes are at least achieved at the utmost. Unless we look at critical race theories and start to talk about whiteness and blackness in Australia and what that means and feels like and looks like for students, for parents, for community members, for teachers, unless we are brave enough, education really won't make a huge difference.